You're telling me my precious daughter, Emily, is getting married to a guy who graduated from an online high school. I was at a loss for words when I went to report our marriage to Emily's father, a practicing physician who has been successful in his own clinic. I was met with fierce opposition, his face turning beet red. No way, no way, no way, no way, don't be ridiculous. Emily will not marry someone like you. Emily's father was furiously scratching his head, clearly enraged. You could even hear the grinding of his teeth, as if he was biting down hard. Emily is my precious, precious only daughter, and you expect me to give her to someone with such a low education. If she marries a lowlife like you, even our grandkids will turn out stupid. Absolutely not. His voice cracking in places, he yelled at me. Having dated Emily for a long time, I had assumed her father would give us his blessing, but at that moment, I couldn't respond. Overwhelmed by the situation, Emily ran out of the house. Neither Emily's father nor I could have imagined the situation that would arise in a few years, far beyond any disagreement. My name is Addie. I've been childhood friends with the girl next door, Emily, playing together since we were little. I'd go over to Emily's house to play, and she'd come over to mine. Close to graduating from preschool, we were sitting on a sofa at her house eating ice cream, when we made a promise: let's keep eating ice cream on this sofa when we become elementary students. Not just as elementary students, even when we become adults, even when we're old. Let's get married when we grow up. Yeah, those are some of the good memories of the promises we made. Emily's mother and my mom always warmly watched over us being so close. Emily's mother passed away unexpectedly when we were in elementary school. The cause of her passing was cervical cancer. During the funeral, Emily clung to her mother's casket, crying the entire time, and seeing her like that made me cry buckets too. And while crying, I apparently told my mom, "I'll protect Emily." I don't remember saying it, but as Emily became gloomy without her mother, and I spent every day comforting and being with her, I truly started to feel the need to protect her. Emily's dad, called Robert, was a doctor well trusted in our local community in a place that could be compared to a well-known suburb in Illinois. Though primarily an internal medicine physician, he would also see us for head injuries or other ailments and help decide whether we should go to the larger hospital in town. But usually, his treatments and medicine did the trick. Ever since I was born, for vaccinations during preschool and for the slightest cough or stomachache, I was taken to Robert. I hated shots and always cried, but since Emily was by my side, they would have us get vaccinated together. Those are now fond memories. When Emily and I reached our junior year in middle school, we started studying together daily at her house, planning to go to the same high school. Emily had a housekeeper named Mrs. Brown, who took care of everything for Robert, who was too busy with his practice. This allowed Emily to focus fully on her club activities and entrance exam preparations. Mrs. Brown would make us sweet treats as a snack, and it was so delicious and comforting, a perfect treat for our study sessions. Thanks to our perseverance, and perhaps the sweet treats, we both passed the entrance exams to the most prestigious high school in a location similar to the outskirts of a big city like San Francisco, reached by a combination of bus and train. Both my parents and Robert were thrilled with our success. By this time, Emily had fully adapted to life without her mother. Mrs. Brown's cheerful presence was likely a big help. In elementary school, Emily often showed tears, but now she rarely ever cried, showing me her bright smile every day. And yet, this time, it was my fault that Emily's smile faded. It was the winter of my freshman year in high school. I went to Robert's place to get her flu shot, and as I was leaving, he called me back and made me sit in the examination chair again. He carefully palpated around my neck and under my arms. "I hope I'm just overthinking this, but your lymph nodes seem a bit swollen. En route, you should go to the city hospital with your mom." Robert's face was unusually serious, and I managed to suppress the rising anxiety as I went home. Then, on the following Monday, with the referral letter in hand, I went to the city hospital, and I was diagnosed with malignant lymphoma. Malignant lymphoma, not an easy illness to overcome. No, it wasn't even clear if I could get better. I decided to quit high school and focus on treatment. At first, I was just scared of the stark outline of life that had suddenly become so clear to me. In the days from the discovery until hospitalization, I was so afraid of the passage of time that I stayed in my house with the curtains closed. Emily just sat by me without saying anything, just being there. I might lash out at you because of my state of mind. Please go home. Even when I told her that, Emily didn't leave. It's okay to take it out on me as much as you need. You shouldn't be alone right now, Auntie. Emily, who I thought was just a kind girl, had become a strong woman before I knew it. And for me, who couldn't bring myself to leave my room, she brought me meals. I don't want to eat this. I knew that my mom was worried about me and made nutritious food. She was trying her best because once I was hospitalized, I wouldn't be able to eat her home cooking for a while. But still, I said that. You don't have to eat it all, just try a bite while it's warm. Emily said that and scooped a spoonful of the cream stew my mom had made and offered it to me. I don't want it, I said, even as I was crying. Then Emily forced the stew into my mouth. The taste of that stew was sweeter, creamier, and more vegetable flavored than any I'd had before. It was just the best. Before I knew it, I was clutching the spoon, crying, and had finished the entire plate. Emily. What is it? Emily, I will definitely come back. I'll get better for sure. When I'm discharged, please let me eat your stew. Okay, I'll learn how to make stew from your mother, so I can cook something really tasty for you. So you have to get better and come back home. Saying that, Emily hugged me. We cried and held each other tightly. I couldn't break the promise I made with Emily. I swore in my heart that I would overcome any treatment. But as I swore, the treatment for lymphoma was no small ordeal. The drugs wreaked havoc on my organs, and radiation therapy made my hair fall out. Especially hard was when a patient in the same room had a sudden change and didn't come back. The thought of possibly ending up like that myself one day. It was terrifying beyond words. Through all my anxiety, Emily was still by my side. After her club activities, she would visit me in the hospital every day, and we would spend time together in the lounge until the visiting hours ended. She talked about what happened at school today, how Robert was worried about me, and even the love stories of our classmates. Although I had to drop out of school, I felt like I was still attending because Emily shared stories with me every day. This went on for a while. Thanks to the doctors and nurses, my illness gradually improved. It took quite some time, and by then Emily and the others were already in their senior year of high school, so my dream of returning to school seemed out of reach, but I was filled with joy that I was nearing remission. Next to Emily, who came to the lounge, I decided to study as well. My studies had come to a halt after freshman year of high school, so I was starting over from that point, but it turned into days where Emily and I would study together every day. Whenever I didn't understand something, Emily would explain it to me. If Emily didn't understand it either, I would write a letter to my old high school teachers. Despite the fact that I had already left the school, every teacher would kindly write out explanations and hand them to Emily. Everyone was rooting for me. Feeling this support made my passion for studying, which had been fading, reignite. The day I was discharged from the hospital and returned home had arrived. For dinner, Emily, who had learned the recipe from my mom, made a creamy chicken stew. Remembering the stew from when I was hospitalized, Emily, my parents, and I couldn't stop our tears. Even after starting rehab at home and being declared in remission, it wasn't smooth sailing, but it was definitely easier than when I was hospitalized. Emily decided to become a nurse, influenced by my time in the hospital. She was inspired by seeing the nurses working as key players in the hospital. Watching Emily work hard at nursing school, I decided to attend a correspondence high school. I aimed to get the qualifications for university admission and, if possible, I wanted to become a doctor. Now that I was getting better, I felt a strong desire to heal sick people, just as I had been. Once I started at the correspondence high school, I studied fiercely. Emily was still by my side, reviewing what she learned at school that day, while I worked on past university entrance exams. I knew that other guys my age already had cars and motorcycles, taking friends out for drives, or treating them to meals at fancy restaurants with money they earned from part-time jobs. I felt apologetic for being an exam student at this time, but Emily didn't seem to care about it. "Let's progress at our own pace. I'm happy enough just seeing you getting better," she would say. And then, the spring when Emily graduated from nursing school, I was accepted into the medical school at a university in New York. I really wanted to take her to New York with me, but Emily had secured a job at the hospital where I had been admitted. "Study as much as you need to. I'll wait for you, no matter how long it takes." Those were Emily's words as I boarded the train headed for New York. "I will definitely come back here." Looking into her eyes, I promised her firmly. Although we had been physically apart during my hospitalization, we had been close in distance, but now I would be in New York. Starting a new chapter away from Emily, with whom I'd spent nearly every day since we were small, was unnerving, but I took the memories of our time together and sank into the express train seat. I would become a doctor in New York, and then surely return to my hometown. I'd become a doctor like Robert. Holding both hands tightly, I felt my familiar town getting farther away. Years passed. I passed my medical licensing exam without a hitch. After finishing my residency, I returned to my hometown. Of course, I stayed in touch with Emily while I was in New York, and we met up during the long breaks, but now we can be together all the time again. Closer than ever before. Because this spring, we decided to get married. I stepped off the high-speed train and transferred to a local line. Straight from the station in my hometown, I dropped by Emily's place. "It's Andy. I came back home today." I was greeted by the housekeeper, Mrs. Brown. "I heard the news. Andy, you're getting married to Emily, aren't you? Congratulations. You two have been through a lot, but you've overcome it together. Truly. Congratulations," Mrs. Brown said, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Yes, a lot has happened," Emily said with a gentle smile. "Sorry for making you feel lonely, but I won't be away anymore, except for nights when I'm on call. That's nothing, just a moment compared to when you were in New York," Emily joked, and the three of us laughed together. We relaxed, drinking tea Mrs. Brown had made, waiting for Robert to come home. Once he arrived, I would give my marriage greeting, and then the four of us would laugh together over Morty. That was my intention. Emily getting married to you. Robert. Having been with Emily all this time, it never crossed my mind that Robert would oppose us now. I was caught off guard and lost for words. "No way, no way, no way, no way, don't be ridiculous. I won't let Emily marry you," Robert raged, scratching his head in fury. "Emily's." He clenched his back teeth after saying that. I could hear the grinding sound. "She's my precious, precious only daughter. How could I give her to someone with such a low education? Your kids would turn out to be fools. Absolutely not." Robert's voice broke in places as he shouted at me. I realized something was wrong. Although we hadn't met recently, I've known Robert for a long time. He really isn't the type to say such things. "Dad." Emily stood up with a clatter. How can you say such things to Andy? Just because you have a graduate degree. Calling him low-educated makes no sense. You know we've always been together, Dad. I can't believe you would say such things. Unbelievable." With that, Emily stormed out of the house, her face flushed with anger. "That's right, Robert. You know how much these kids care for each other. Emily's right. I know that. I do know that." Mrs. Brown agreed, but Robert just shook his head with his eyes closed. "Robert," I tentatively called out to him. "Understand me. Just understand my feelings," he said. Then he went into the back room and slammed the door. Mrs. Brown seemed unaware, and Emily was no longer in the house, so I think I was the only one who noticed Robert was holding something back. He was probably holding back tears. His voice was choked up at the end. I didn't understand why he was crying, but I knew what he said to me wasn't what he meant. Maybe he was thinking about the time when I relapsed. He didn't want Emily to go through that hardship. "Mrs. Brown, I'm going to look for Emily." I can't even apologize enough. I never would have thought Robert would say such things to you, Andy. Still, you're going to look for Emily. I don't think Robert meant to say those things. He's not that kind of person, and he was a little teary at the end. I think something's up. Please stay here for him, Mrs. Brown. I'll go find Emily. I left the house. It was March, yet still chilly. I ran to the places where Emily might have gone without even a coat. I found her at the second cafe I checked. Emily apologized repeatedly for making me feel bad. I just told her to come home, but she shook her head. And so, Emily started living alone near her workplace. Several months later. Recently, Emily, who had not been feeling well, called to say she was hospitalized. I rushed to her room. She said she had felt dizzy and came to the hospital, only to be admitted for testing. It seems she had severe anemia, and it was decided to investigate the cause. Hope it's nothing serious. I was on call that day, so during my breaks, I stayed in touch, hoping the tests would reveal nothing. But soon I got the call. Stage 2 cervical cancer was found. Emily was putting on a brave face, and although it was early stage, it was the same disease that took her mother. She couldn't help but feel anxious. Keeping in touch frequently, I spent time up until the end of my workday. As soon as I finished my work, I head to Emily's hospital room. To my surprise, Robert was also there. Emily, since that marriage proposal, I hadn't really had a proper conversation with Robert, but none of that mattered now. I rushed to Emily's bedside. "What, it's you. You're still here with Emily, aren't you? It's because of someone like you that she got sick." "Robert, no, that's not right. You shouldn't say such things to the doctor." A junior doctor who seemed to have been explaining Emily's condition to Robert hurriedly tries to stop him. "I'm terribly sorry, Dr. Bennett. He has been quite confused and upset. You don't have to use such formal language with this guy." No, Robert. This is Dr. Bennett. He graduated from a prestigious medical school in New York and went on to specialize in surgery. He's one of the top young doctors at this hospital and has successfully performed many cancer surgeries. It's said that you're in safe hands if Dr. Bennett is in charge. He's that kind of doctor. This guy, a doctor, a surgeon who graduated from a prestigious university in New York. Robert stood frozen as he looked at me. That's right. After graduating from a correspondence high school, I too became a doctor in New York. Now, I'll be the primary physician for Emily. I will ensure the surgery succeeds, even if it costs me my life. Please, entrust Emily to me. For a moment, Robert's eyes darted about in shock. Dad. And he studied hard and made it into the competitive science program at a prestigious university in New York. And he really excelled at the university and became a doctor. I want Andy to perform the surgery. I don't want it any other way. Emily said softly. Robert, I've performed many surgeries for cervical cancer. I want to provide Emily with the best treatment possible. Could you please entrust me as her primary physician? Andy. Snapping back to reality, Robert took my hand. I couldn't protect her. I regret every day that if I had paid more attention, I could have discovered her illness sooner. And now, to have Emily stricken with the same disease. When you told me about your intention to marry Emily, I said terrible things to you. It wasn't what I truly felt. I just couldn't bear the thought of letting Emily go. I wanted to keep her close, but with you, Andy, I had no reason to object. I thought I had found one reason to oppose and said those things. I don't know if it's too late to ask for forgiveness now, but I do want your forgiveness. Robert spoke with a choked voice, gripping my hand tightly. Robert, please don't worry. I knew that wasn't what you really felt. And Emily, she was angry, but deep down, she loves you very much. That's why she contacted you immediately after finding out about her illness. Let's fight this disease together. The junior doctor, who had been explaining the test results, seemed to read the situation and left the room ahead of us. The three of us joined hands, promising each other a successful surgery. After that, given Emily's youth, the surgery was performed promptly. I was the surgeon, and the operation was a success. 5 years have passed since then. As her primary physician, I judged the chance of recurrence to be extremely low and concluded her treatment. Once again, Andy, thank you for saving Emily, and for the awful things I said to you. I want to apologize again. Robert said, bowing deeply in the car on the way back from the hospital. No, Robert, please lift your head. What I did was merely my duty as a doctor. Besides, I learned all of this from you. Watching you dedicate yourself to community health care inspired me to become a doctor. If Emily's illness is cured, it's thanks to your efforts, and you saved my life, too. If you hadn't noticed the swelling in my lymph nodes when I was in high school, I wouldn't be here right now. We shouldn't talk about that time, Andy. Emily interrupted, tears welling up at the memory. And there's no need for apologies, really. I knew at that time you didn't mean those words, and Emily was ready to marry me even without your blessing. But I was the one who said we should wait a bit longer. Is that so? That's a relief, Emily. It's good that Andy was there for you, Andy. Please continue to look after my daughter. And so, our marriage, after a long wait, finally received Robert's blessing. We decided to hold the wedding in the courtyard of Robert's clinic. There were wedding venues in our hometown, though they weren't exactly modern. There were plenty of options if we went to the state capital, but that would have inconvenienced the guests. So we settled on the beloved clinic with many cherished memories, a place loved by the community. Robert attended the ceremony holding a photo of his late wife, and many locals came as well. Of course, many of my classmates from elementary to high school attended, making it an unforgettable wedding. I will officially take over Robert's clinic next spring. And of course, I plan to have Robert work with me part-time for a while. I will learn the ropes of community healthcare from him. I aim to become a family doctor who is as trusted and loved by the community as Robert. The real start begins now. The door opened, and my childhood friend, Scott, along with his wife, Sarah, entered with big smiles on their faces. I looked at the happy couple and sincerely blessed Scott, who had always been there to support me. My name is Ethan, 28 years old. Today, I'm attending the wedding of Scott, a close friend I've known since we were kids. I've had a limp ever since I was diagnosed with Perf's disease as a child. Perf's disease is a condition where a part of the hip bone dies off, and I was diagnosed when I was 12. I grew up in a rural area in the mountains, similar to the Appalachian region, so it was hard to find good doctors. But Scott was always there for me, caring and being by my side. The bride, Sarah, seems calm and is such a pleasant lady. Congrats, Scott and Sarah. I clapped joyfully for them multiple times. Given that Sarah is a hairstylist, many of her friends from the bride's side looked glamorous and stylish. There were even some famous models, regulars in magazines. Even the groom's buddies seemed quite excited about that. I was focused on Scott's wedding, but some even left their seats to ask those models for photos. Come on, what are you doing? This isn't a mixer party. Focus on Scott and Sarah. Though I was irritated, I didn't have the courage to reprimand them. Because when I get up limping, people usually give me a strange look due to my limp. I've gotten used to it, but it's still not a good feeling. The most challenging thing since I was diagnosed with Perf's disease was obstructing others because of my slow walking pace. Being stared at or getting annoyed looks from strangers is an everyday occurrence. Some were rude, getting mad at me for no reason, causing endless troubles. So, being in a crowd, like today, is where I'm most nervous and is something I really dislike. But for Scott, my dear friend, I traveled using unfamiliar trains to be here. So, I was extremely careful not to get in the way of those taking photos and making a fuss. The ceremony ended without a hitch under the clear blue sky. Scott and Sarah, with big smiles on their faces, were showered with colorful flower petals. The flower shower had begun. I was on the church stairs, holding petals, saying congratulations to them with all my heart. The flower shower ended peacefully, but when I was about to go down the stairs, I expected it, but something unfortunate happened. Someone shouted from behind, "Hurry up, you're too slow." As expected, an impatient woman's voice echoed. To be honest, stairs are the most challenging thing for me with my limp. I can't go down quickly, but I try my best not to inconvenience everyone. I felt like I was a burden again. My euphoria from celebrating Scott just moments ago vanished instantly. When things like this happen, apologizing is the only option. I've learned this the hard way in my life. I quickly moved to the side of the stairs, holding the railing, saying, "I'm so sorry, please, go ahead." I gestured them to pass by. I thought that was that. But then, that comment was very rude. An elegant middle-aged woman, dressed sharply in what looked like a formal outfit, held my shaky hand. "Take your time and be careful," she said, accompanying me down the stairs. I somehow managed to get to the bottom floor and said, "Thank you so much, you truly saved me." Hearing this, the woman slowly shook her head. Then, she lowered her head to me and said, "I should be the one apologizing. The person who made that comment earlier was likely one of our employees. I'm terribly sorry." To my surprise, she apologized. As I stood there in shock, the woman took out a business card from her bag and handed it to me. The card read, "Kathleen Smith, Salon Marie, owner." It turned out that the woman in the dress, Kathleen, was the owner of the hair salon and the aunt of Scott. The woman who had complained earlier appeared to be an employee at Kathleen's salon. To be honest, I wasn't too bothered by her earlier comments. Because I've been through similar experiences countless times, and I've always thought that if I let them hurt me, I'd be losing. So I candidly said, "Please don't worry about what happened earlier. It's true I was slow, and such incidents are common for me. More than that, thank you for your concern." I opened up about my feelings and prepared to leave. Kathleen then sincerely said, "You are truly a humble and wonderful person. I wish my employees could learn from you." Her words somehow comforted me. After the wedding ceremony, inside the church, I was rushing to the reception venue. Suddenly from behind, I heard, "I'm really sorry about earlier. Are you all right?" I quickly turned around, and there was a woman holding a business card. Yes, it was the same woman who had shouted at me earlier. She looked to be in her early 20s, younger than me, with a bold makeup, giving a vibe of a typical young lady these days. Though I was taken aback, I reassured her with a smile. She probably got scolded by Kathleen and was trying to make amends. I neither had any anger towards her or any particular interest. After accepting her apology, just when I was about to leave the scene, "Wait, to make it up to you. Would you let me give you a free haircut next time?" she said, still looking apologetic, and forcefully handed me her business card. Caught off guard by her sudden offer, I kept my composure and with a smile said, "Thank you for your kindness," and took the card before parting ways with her. Throughout my life, I've been hurt and pitied for my disability countless times. So, I honestly didn't feel like looking at her card, assuming her offer was just a lip service. After attending Scott and Sarah's reception, I put her card in my suit's inner pocket and even forgot about our agreement. However, sometime after Scott's wedding, I got a call. "Hey, Ethan, it's me. Thanks for coming to our wedding." It was Scott himself. "Hey Scott, back from your honeymoon. It was such a wonderful wedding." I congratulated Scott once more. Scott mentioned how he and Sarah went to Hawaii and enjoyed scuba diving, and his voice sounded lively. Then, out of the blue, he said, "Actually, the reason I called today is, someone here wants to talk to you." Hang on. The voice changed to a woman's. It's Maria Smith, the one who gave you a card at the wedding. Why haven't you visited the salon? Are you still mad at me?" Caught off guard by her rapid-fire questions, I was perplexed. Who is this? The wedding, the card, the salon. After a few moments, I remembered. I hurriedly searched for her card in my suit's pocket and found it. The card read, "Hairstylist, Maria Smith." I honestly explained the situation to Maria. "It's okay. I'm not mad at all. I just forgot about our appointment. I'm so sorry." Hearing my apology, Maria sounded genuinely relieved. "Got it. Just let me know when you're available. I promise to give you the best haircut as an apology." I was puzzled by her insistence, but I thought, why not, and made an appointment for a haircut. The day of my appointment with Maria. After finishing work, I went to the hair salon where she works. It's already past 8 p.m. Since it's after business hours, only Maria was left in the salon. From what I gathered, Maria seems to be an apprentice hairstylist. While she was cutting my hair, she told me that she practices cutting and curling hair late every day, aiming to win the next hairdressing competition. But then, she paused and said, "My boss favors others and lets them participate in the contests. That's why I never get a chance. I'm still just an assistant, stuck washing hair." I began to resent the other staff members, and I couldn't enjoy my job as a hairstylist. Maria's story was candid and touching. Then she continued. "At Scott's wedding, I got scolded big time by my boss. She said that narrow-minded people, those who can't be happy for others, can't win in contests, no matter how skilled they are, that they're failures both as hairstylists and as human beings. It really got me down." Then Maria revealed a surprising fact. "At that wedding, I was heartbroken. Turns out, Scott is my cousin, the older brother I've always looked up to, but he got taken by Sarah, the top hairstylist in our store. I'm totally outmatched by Sarah, both professionally and personally. That's why I was so frustrated and treated Ethan so badly at the happy event. I'm truly sorry. I couldn't help but ask something that was on my mind." "So, are you by any chance Kathleen's daughter?" When I asked that, Maria looked embarrassed and nodded. After listening to her whole story, I couldn't help but laugh. "So, that's what's been bothering you." "I feel the same way, exactly the same." Maria looked puzzled, but I kept talking. "I used to feel the same way. I'd look at able-bodied people and wonder, why isn't happiness coming my way? Why does my life have so many challenges? But no matter how much I worried, nothing changed. So I realized I had to change. I had to fully accept my situation." Thinking back, I used to get frustrated and take it out on my family. But once I took the first step, I met Scott, a truly kind-hearted best friend. I realized that while I might not be athletic, I was good at studying. After a lot of hard work, I managed to get into a prestigious college's science department. Now, I'm doing pretty well in a big company. I've learned to avoid people who find me annoying, and to genuinely appreciate those like Kathleen who helped me. When I shared this with Maria, she was crying. You're absolutely right. I've been too focused on my insecurities. I'll try to live more honestly and sincerely. Your words really resonated with me. Thank you. Every time she cried, her thick foundation and heavy mascara ran. Upon closer look, her skin was very clear, and she looked much cuter without makeup. You don't have to be perfect like Kathleen or Sarah. You have your own unique qualities. Keep it up. While I was encouraging Maria, I was also cheering myself on. I need to work hard and learn from her. 1 year after Scott's wedding, I visit the salon Marie once a month to get my hair cut. Of course, my personal hairstylist is Maria. Actually, she has become a valuable partner in both my personal and professional life. As I started to date her and listen to her work challenges, I was drawn to her sincerity and hard-working nature. After we got together, Maria let go of her unnecessary insecurities and started focusing more on her job as a hairstylist. Kathleen even thanked me, saying Maria had become a considerate and good hairstylist. And now, I wholeheartedly support her as she works hard for the next competition. I hope that in the near future, Maria will become the #1 hairstylist. Ouch, that hurts. Suddenly, a girl walking in front of him slipped and fell. Are you okay? While on my break, heading to get a convenience store lunch, I quickly approached her to offer help. It looks like I twisted my ankle. Ouch. Oh no, what should I do? I won't make it to my exam. She spoke in a panicked tone. Her words caught my attention, and I asked her to clarify. An exam? What happened? Well, it seemed she was startled, being approached by a stranger out of the blue. She distances herself from me a little bit. I continued to speak to her gently. I'm not a creep. Maybe you're in some kind of trouble. If you tell me what's going on, perhaps I can help. Then, with a look of distress, she replied, Actually, I got the train schedule mixed up for my college entrance exam. At this rate, I'm going to miss it. I see what's the problem now. I'm a taxi driver. You know the location of that venue, right? A taxi driver. Her eyes sparkled for a moment, but then she looked down with a gloomy face again. But I'm not sure if I have enough money. Don't worry about it. If you're short, I'll cover it for now. Really? Are you sure? I returned her surprise with a smile. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Got it. Let's hurry to the venue then. After that, I rushed her to the university exam venue at full speed in my taxi. She was frantically reviewing her notes, all absorbed in her preparations. Luckily, the roads were clear that day, and we were able to get to the venue smoothly without getting stuck at any traffic lights. Thank you, really, thank you so much. Just go. Hurry up and get to the venue. Yes, thank you. She kept bowing to me as she made her way to the venue. I watched her until she was out of sight. Then, a few years later, on a certain day, while I was driving with a customer on board, I could hear some chatter coming from the back seat. What's wrong with the matchmaking partner I picked for her? He's a member of the same business owners gathering as I am. There's nothing to complain about him financially. He's got a good character, and I want to see my grandkids soon. It's sad to think I might not see my daughter's kids. She'd prefer someone with a more down-to-earth job. I don't know what to do with that. He sighed as he spoke. I nodded along, listening to his words. This man, Mr. Smith, often used our taxi service and was a regular customer. He always calls his daughter when he's in the taxi, but it seems she's not interested in relationships or marriage, even at her age. I think it's fine to stay single nowadays, and if she's not interested, she shouldn't be pushed into marriage. As a parent, I think it's better for my daughter to get married sooner rather than later. You know, raising kids takes energy, and it seems she doesn't have a boyfriend to speak of, which worries me. She doesn't even know about dating, but she doesn't like the sound of arranged dates with other business owners, either. Now she says she wants someone with a down-to-earth job, not a CEO or anything. It's a bit of a wishful thinking. Yeah, I hear you. Thinking to myself that being a father is tough, I kept listening. Then Mr. Smith dropped a bombshell. "Ah, that's right, you're single, aren't you? How about you meet my daughter for a matchmaking date?" What do you mean?" "Well, she needs to get used to these situations, doesn't she?" It's just a bit of practice. How about it? Will you join me? Just go on 2 or 3 dates, that's all I ask. Before that, I'll get turned down," I said with a laugh, and in response, Mr. Smith got out of the car saying, "I'll contact you again then." After that, somehow, I ended up agreeing to practice for an arranged date practice with Mr. Smith's daughter. When he told her about an arranged date with a taxi driver, she seemed more positive than usual and insisted on meeting, even if just once, so he pushed the conversation forward. Well, seriously, Mr. Smith is an important client. I thought I had to do as he said, and the day arrived. Before the arranged date, I secretly met with Mr. Smith to discuss the details. You know, when I told my daughter, she started saying she's more interested in a taxi driver than a CEO. "Why is that?" I asked, puzzled, and Mr. Smith started to explain. "Well, it turns out she fell in love at first sight with a guy before she entered college. She doesn't know his name. It was a kind taxi driver who helped her get to her entrance exam venue when she took the wrong train. She lost his business card and even forgot to note down the taxi company's name. Such a klutz." "What?" I exclaimed loudly in response to Mr. Smith's words. "Huh? Something wrong?" "No. It just feels like something similar happened a few years back." "Oh really? How many years ago was that?" "It's been about 6 years now. That's around the time my daughter started college." "Could it be? You're the one." The one. You're my daughter's destiny." "What?" I couldn't help but express my surprise at Mr. Smith's remark. "Wait a minute. People often say it's a small world, but could such a story be true? That a girl I once drove in my taxi years ago would turn out to be the daughter of a client. That doesn't normally happen. It's fate. This is fate." I'm not quite following the story here. Please, I'm asking you to take today's arranged date with my daughter seriously." "But Mr. Smith, let's calm down. Are you sure your daughter is the same girl I drove? We need to confirm that first." "That's right. Let's go confirm it right now." "Okay, I'll go. Just please don't pull on my clothes," I cautioned the excited Mr. Smith as we headed to the upscale restaurant for the arranged date. "I'm begging you, it's a request for life. Otherwise, I may never see my grandchildren." Okay, just calm down." "Well, right." And so, I waited at the restaurant for her to arrive. Mr. Smith parted ways with me as if nothing had happened and headed towards the lobby where he was meeting his daughter. "Nice to meet you." "Oh." We looked at each other, and immediately, memories of the past came flooding back. "No way, you're the taxi driver from back then. You're the girl from that time." Sure enough, Mr. Smith's hunch was right. His daughter was indeed the girl I had given a cab ride years ago. Who would have thought we'd meet again after so many years? It's quite a surprise. We continued our excited conversation in a private dining room of a high-end restaurant. "Oh, by the way, did you do okay on your entrance exam that day?" "Yes, I passed successfully and graduated the year before last. I really had a wonderful 4 years." "That's great to hear. Who I am today is all thanks to you, the driver. If you hadn't driven me that day, I wouldn't have been able to attend that university. I don't know how to thank you. I wanted to contact you right after that day and looked for your business card, but I must have dropped it somewhere and couldn't find it. I didn't even know the name of your company, so I couldn't express my gratitude, and for that, I'm really sorry." She bowed deeply. "It was nothing big, really. Come on, lift your head. I'm just glad you made it to your exam on time." I had always wondered about that day, so hearing this from her made me genuinely happy. Mr. Smith was listening to our exchange, nodding emphatically and saying, "I knew it." While glancing at her father, she whispered to me, Did you by any chance get hit with the 'please take care of my daughter' spiel?" Well, as I scratched my head in embarrassment, she bowed deeply again. I'm truly sorry. I had to do it, otherwise, when would you ever find a husband? Mr. Smith said with a pointed look. Listen, Dad, I'm still in my 20s. I want to focus on my career a little longer. But I did bring someone you like. Look, we just met briefly years ago. Sure, I always said that if I were to marry, I'd want someone who can act kindly on the spur of the moment, like the taxi driver from that time. But if we were actually to date, that's a different story, isn't it? We both need time to prepare ourselves emotionally. So, how about you give it a trial period and start dating now? What the heck, now? With a sigh, she buried her face in her hands. Mr. Smith, it seems like Madison still wants to focus on her career, and I'm not exactly swimming in cash right now either. I'm also questioning whether I'm really in the same league as a CEO's daughter like Madison. After I said that, Mr. Smith replied, these days, it's not easy to have a good time in any job nowadays. Running a company is especially challenging. Anyway, you two had a fateful meeting, so it's all right to date each other, right? After all, both of you had quite the memorable introduction. Looking at Mr. Smith's carefree attitude, I couldn't help but feel a bit exasperated. I don't mind if Madison isn't against the idea. Really, you're okay with someone like me. If you're not into it, that's totally fine. No, it's not that I'm not into it. Well then, if it's okay with you, would you like to start dating? Yes, I would. Yes. Now I'll get to see my first grandchild. I had agreed to proceed with the relationship as planned in our meeting. But man, who would have thought that I'd end up dating the girl I saved 6 years ago? And all because of her father's assertive matchmaking. Man, today was a good day, wasn't it? Mr. Smith was in high spirits during the dinner, and the drinks were flowing. Anyway, our next day off is definitely a date, huh? Yes, sure. With a smile, Mr. Smith seemed very pleased, while I was slightly taken aback responding to him, and Madison just gave a wry smile. Thanks to Mr. Smith's assertive suggestion, we quickly arranged our schedules and decided to meet up again soon. I'm really sorry for the trouble my dad caused the other day. No, I should apologize for not being considerate enough. As soon as we met up at the cafe, we were both apologizing to each other. So, about this conversation, I get it. Even after that, being told to just start dating out of the blue. At that time, I was swept up by Mr. Smith's momentum, but I didn't think it was possible to start a relationship with a woman in such a forceful way. That's what I believed, but her response took me by surprise. No, if you're okay with it, why don't we really start dating? Excuse me, I told my father, but it's true that I've been thinking about you ever since that day. After all, I want the person I marry to be someone who can help me in times of need. I was at a loss for words to her statement. I'm already well past my mid-30s. I felt that there was a bit of an age gap. I certainly didn't think there were young women in their 20s who would want to date me. But then, if you don't mind me, I would like to date you. Just, if we get married or have children, I want to continue working. So unless you can accept that, I can't consider a relationship with marriage in mind. Oh, that's no problem at all. I smiled at her words. In the past, there may have been a time when it was assumed women would just stay at home, but these days there are few husbands who would say such a thing. It's important that we support each other in life. I have no intention of taking away what's important to you. With that, she smiled brightly. My dad has been saying he wants you to eventually take over the company. If you're willing, would you consider coming to my dad's company? I won't say anymore that I'm not up for the CEO's job. Actually, I've been working as an administrative assistant at my dad's company. She was quickly moving the conversation forward. No, let's slow down a bit on that, I responded, my mind reeling. It seems Madison, Mr. Smith's daughter, is as eager as he is. Right, I'm getting ahead of myself again. I always do this. Let's just enjoy our day today. I didn't have any more room in my head to think. Just being with such a charming young lady was overwhelming enough. Who would have thought, in my mid-30s, I'd have such a fateful encounter that could pretty much decide my future? And with a girl I met by chance 6 years ago. Shall we go then? Yes, let's. At that moment, I took her soft hand, glanced at her profile, and felt a spark. With her, I felt like we could enjoy our days together. After today's date, I decided to officially ask her out. That's what I resolved. Hey, newcomer, stick to your job, will ya? Don't even think about coming on a trip to Guam. I, having turned 50, found myself switching careers for reasons of my own. However, at my new company's staff trip to Guam, it turned out I was the only one without a boarding pass. Set up by a younger colleague, it seems. Apparently, this junior employee thinks I'm just another rank-and-file member. It makes sense. If he knew better, he wouldn't pull such a stunt. Not realizing it could cost him his job. My name is John Smith. I'm a man nearing 50 who's had to switch careers at this age. Between moving and dealing with all sorts of paperwork, I've had quite a tiresome first week on the job. Almost a month has passed since then. I'm getting used to my new home, new environment, and the new job, and my daily life is beginning to stabilize. These past few days, while not particularly noteworthy, have brought various happenings at work. But for me, the new guy, it's been a good kind of challenge. On the whole, I'm fairly satisfied with my new life. Perhaps it's because of my age at the time of this career change, but all my seniors teaching me the ropes are younger. The workplace is vibrant with young talent. Many of them acknowledge my skills and rely on me. Determined not to be outdone by them, I've built on the experience from my previous job to do meaningful work. Yet, there's a dark cloud looming over my life. My direct manager at the new job, the department manager, is someone named Brandon. At just 32 years old, he's an elite employee who's graduated from a prestigious private university and made it to department manager. It seems his meteoric rise has become a source of pride, and he's got it out for me since I joined the company at 50 as a regular employee. He's reluctant to approve various applications, and he's always nitpicking when it comes to document approvals. Anyway, he doesn't seem to like me one bit, always rating me at rock bottom, as if an old-timer newbie like me is useless. It raises serious doubts about whether he's as capable or competent as his title suggests. His attitude is overbearing, and he's quick to lash out in anger if something doesn't suit his fancy. He probably doesn't like it when things don't go his way. It's not hard to guess that his too high pride is what's driving this behavior. He's a self-centered person, dumping unpleasant tasks on his subordinates. When it comes to taking credit for others' work, he's reputedly the best in the business. I'd heard rumors about him before, but it seems his behavior has gotten worse lately. Probably because he's got an old newbie he thinks he can push around. The volume and nature of the work I'm saddled with are such that I might as well claim the title of manager myself. As for what the actual manager is doing, it's maddening. He's not engrossed in paperwork or a computer screen, but his cell phone. When you're on your phone, what exactly are you doing, Brandon? Even when staff members implicitly call him out, he just snaps back, quiet, I'm doing research, with no sign of change. I once caught a glimpse of his phone screen, and it was showing an animation of giant robots battling. This company isn't involved in the robot industry, nor does it have anything to do with animation or screenwriting. It's not just me, other staff members are also inwardly fuming about his so-called research. At this rate, it's no surprise that his subordinates, including myself, are becoming overwhelmed with work. I find myself working overtime almost daily, starting to miss the sight of the setting sun. Yet, the manager always leaves on the dot. Leaving on time isn't bad in itself, in fact, it should be encouraged. But with Brandon, it's different. He might as well be on a day off at home for all the work he does in the office. Well, I'm heading out. Make sure you handle everything, especially you, the newbie. It's 6 p.m. It looks like he's leaving early again today. Pointing his index finger at me, he calls out my name directly. I'd normally like some help, but in his case, it's actually more efficient without him around. Yeah, okay. Neither I nor the other staff members tried to stop him from leaving. Considering he became a manager at 32, if he put in a bit more effort, further promotion wouldn't be just a dream. Unable to stand the situation any longer, I collaborated with the senior staff, other than the manager, to try and improve our workflow efficiency. We started by reducing the amount of printed materials in line with recent paperless trends. We successfully cut down on the unnecessary time spent filing and searching for filed documents. Next, we got rid of unnecessary meetings. Spending an hour just to ramble on with minor reports was a total waste. We immediately stopped that and kept it to sharing via internal emails to all members. With this approach, our work efficiency kept improving, and gradually, overtime hours began to decrease. Since I was the one who initially suggested these efficiencies, to my delight, I was thanked by my senior colleagues. But there was one person who didn't take kindly to these changes. Needless to say, it was our manager, Brandon. At first, he didn't interfere with the efficiency initiatives, but as soon as he found out I was the one behind it, he flipped like a switch and started to object. Don't go doing things on your own. I'm sorry, but at this rate, everyone's health is going to suffer. Shut it. Working hard until you're tired, that's the point. Don't try to make it easy. He said this despite not being tired or working much himself. Resisting his bullying was tiring and a waste of time. So I just apologized without any backtalk and went back to work. It's been about a month and a half since I joined this workplace. Luckily, a company trip, which also served as my welcome party, was being arranged. The destination was Guam, and family participation was allowed upon request. Brandon, could you please approve this? It's the application for family members to join the company trip. Oh, all right. When I handed over the documents, Brandon snatched them as if ripping them from my hands. He was looking at his cell phone again at that time. Probably he was irritated at being disturbed during his viewing. I'll pass this on from me to the director. Thank you. What in the world? I was surprised by Brandon's unusually swift approval. Brandon, what? Stop staring and beat it. Okay. He was smirking slyly at that time. The day of the company trip, I took my wife, Allie, to the gathering spot. We were supposed to meet in front of the airport gate and receive our plane tickets there. I wonder how the in-laws are doing. Amidst the bustling crowd, I asked Allie, who was carrying bags in both hands. Little do people know, my wife Allie is Nebraska's American from Guam. We met and married during my time living in Guam due to circumstances. They're fine. I got an email just the other day. Dad was the life of the village fiesta. He seemed so happy. The fiesta is a village festival often held in Guam. It's celebrated to honor the patron saints and is charming because even tourists can easily join in. That's good. They seem well. Yeah. We talked about our relatives as we headed to the gate. Most of the attendees had already gathered, and there were people from our department too. Oh, good morning, John. The greeting came from Kylie, a senior colleague. She is an up-and-coming young employee who joined the company the year before last. Good morning. Brandon is handling everyone's tickets. Is that so? I'll go get them then. Brandon was at a rest area near the gate. He was still engrossed in his cell phone, watching that animated movie intently. "Good morning, Brandon." What? You're here? What do you mean, you're here?" Unfortunately, he paused the video and continued with a similar smirk to when I submitted the travel request. "I don't have tickets for you too." "What?" As I frowned, Brandon started grinning even more. "What do you mean by that?" Ellie, who had been looking forward to showing her parents her face, asked. I too looked at Brandon with the same question. "It means just what I said. A slacker and a newbie like you couldn't possibly be going." "Brandon, that's your own description." I almost retorted but held back, not wanting to cause a scene that could affect my future at the company. Besides, this was a public place. The company's name must be displayed somewhere, and I didn't want to attract negative attention. "Oops, time to board. Too bad, Mr. Newbie, since you are always slacking. Go back to the office and work in silence." Stunned, Allie and I were mocked by Brandon as he headed to the boarding gate. Left behind, Allie and me. During our discussion, I had personally suggested going to Guam. I had already taken vacation time for travel, and as Brandon said, the office would probably be closed anyway. If we forced our way in, we'd inevitably need to deal with the security company. Yeah, it makes sense to go on our own. I've already bought some souvenirs for the folks anyway. Then let's do that. I'll ask if there are any tickets available for today. I too wanted to drop by my in-laws for the first time in a while. Plus, on the second day of the planned company trip, I had important business to attend to. Brandon seemed unaware, but there was no way I could not go. After about a 10-minute wait in line, I approached the counter. "Excuse me, do you have 2 seats available for today's flight to Guam?" "Yes, let me check for you." The woman, with her posture upright and polite demeanor, started clicking away at the computer keyboard. After several clicks of the mouse, she looked up at me again. "Thank you for waiting. We do have availability, but it would be in business class." "Business class? That's going to cost a bit more." "Well, it's a vacation after all. Let's splurge a bit and thoroughly enjoy ourselves." "Yes, those seats will be fine, thank you." "Understood." Somehow, we managed to get last-minute tickets to Guam. Ellie and I then took off to Guam on the next flight. The journey in business class was many times more comfortable than I had imagined. High-quality seats that don't tire you out even after long hours. More personal space than other seats. It might have actually been better to pay for this out of pocket. "I'm sorry, I need to use the restroom real quick." "Sure." An hour and a half had passed after departure. While I was enjoying my coffee, I couldn't hold it any longer and had to get up from my seat. Following the signs, I made it to the restroom, but it was occupied. After waiting nearby for a few minutes, I heard the sound of flushing. Finally, the lock clicked open and a man came out. "I'm sorry for the wait. Oh, John, is that you?" Jack, isn't it?" It was Jack, a junior colleague from before my job switch. Neither of us expected to meet here, and we were both surprised. "What brings you here?" "I was on vacation with my family back in Nebraska, and now I'm heading back to Guam for work." "Is that right? I'm on vacation too. I thought I'd drop by my wife's family. I just moved to Nebraska not too long ago myself." "Oh, you're on vacation. I heard from my dad that you were coming to Guam for a company trip." "Yeah, you heard about that." Actually, Jack is the son of the owner of the company I used to work for in Guam. I had a good relationship with him, and naturally, with his father as well. The president of that company and my current workplace had connections, which is how I got called over to Nebraska. It wasn't really something to hide, so I explained the situation to Jack. "Haha, it sounds like you're in quite the situation. Come on, It's not funny, really. My apologies. But as for this so-called manager Brandon, who knows what will happen with him? Haha, indeed. Jack burst into laughter after hearing about Brandon, probably because he knows what I was called to Nebraska. I mean, why I was called over here. Hey, what about the social gathering? Wasn't it scheduled for the second day of the company trip? Well, what to do? Because of Brandon, I'm supposed to be on vacation right now. Well, what to do now? Oops, I came here to use the restroom. Oh, I'm sorry for holding you up. I'll just take care of business and think about this issue later. Still, without a solution, the plane landed at Guam's airport. There I was, waiting for our luggage to come out on the conveyor belt with Allie and Jack, when... Hey, isn't that John? Did you come all this way at your own expense? Poor guy. Thanks for that. He was still at the airport, huh? His usual condescending attitude was especially annoying today. Well, your hotel and meals aren't arranged, so you better take care of it yourself. After getting his piece said, Brandon went back to the other employees, laughing loudly. Jack, who was nearby, was desperately trying to hold back his laughter. Though it wasn't a laughing matter. After collecting our luggage and talking with Jack for about 30 minutes, Ellie's uncle came to pick us up in his car. It was time to say goodbye to Jack for now. See you later. If you want, the four of us, including your wife, should grab a meal together. That sounds good. How about tomorrow evening? Sure. I waved one last time and got into the car. The destination was Ellie's family home. That night, relatives gathered for a garden party in her honor. It's only been a month and a half, but it seems lonely for them that their daughter crosses borders and is away. Both my father-in-law and mother-in-law were overjoyed to reunite with Allie. Oh, delicious. It's definitely that taste. You've got beer in Nebraska, haven't you? While the three of them were having a great time, I shared a beer with Ellie's brother. Well, they do, but it just doesn't suit my taste. Maybe because I've lived here so long. Is that so? Feel free to take some beer from our house if you'd like. Really? Jer, of course, but watch the quantity. You'll be charged if you go over the limit. Got it. As the conversation and drinks flowed, I was finally getting tipsy. It's the best time at any party. But then, a sound cut through those moments. Huh? A phone call. When I took out the cell phone from my right pocket, the screen shows Manager Brandon. I answered, though I wasn't feeling up for it. Hello, this is John. Hey you, where are you? Get over to the Elaine Hotel now. His tone was so fierce that I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear. Why? What do you mean why? Just get over here. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to decline. Decline? What are you planning? Weren't you the one who marked us as not attending the trip, Brandon? I'm on vacation now, so please excuse me. Hey, he was about to say more, but I forcibly ended the call, not wanting any more interruptions. He called back several times after that. It was so persistent that I had to set my phone to reject his calls. Forgetting all about that, I was enjoying myself when my pocket buzzed again. I was about to ignore it, but then I remembered I'd set Brandon to be blocked, so I checked the screen. Huh? It was President Riley on the display. Asher Riley. The president of the company where I had been recruited, a friend of the president of the company where Jack works. He liked the work I had done in Guam and headhunted me. He's 70 years old and thinking about retiring soon. Hello, this is John. It's Riley. I heard from Brandon that you are on a break. I'm sorry. I was supposed to join the company trip, but due to a scheme by Brandon, Allie and I were made non-participants. I'm here in Guam on personal business. Right now, we're having a party at Allie's folks' place. I've explained everything that happened. Is that so? I'm sorry. I've caused you trouble." "No, President Riley, you haven't done anything. For now, we'll just stay at my wife's family home today." "All right, that's fine. I'll make sure to show up at the networking event, so I'll see you tomorrow." "I'll be waiting. Do you know the time and place?" "Yes, I'm aware." "Good, then, I'm counting on you for tomorrow. It's a very important introduction." "Understood." After a few more pleasantries, the call ended. Whew! Who would have thought this would be how Brandon's actions would come to the president's attention? The next day, Ellie and I met up with the Jack and his wife in front of the park. We took a taxi to our intended hotel. Well, this is impressive. Guam, a tourist destination, is visited by all sorts of people. From tycoons and celebrities to the average Joe, everyone has their own style. This hotel, seemingly built for tycoons, was dazzling everywhere you looked. Expensive-looking art was nonchalantly on display. Everything from the people's demeanor to the furniture was exquisite. We have a dinner reservation here, so it should be a good warm-up for the important networking event. That's for sure. We have 2 hours until the networking event. There is plenty of time to have a leisurely meal before heading to the top floor, the venue for the event. After enjoying a sumptuous meal, we took the elevator to the top floor. The food was outstanding and made for a great memory. How nice it would have been to share this meal with the senior colleagues from the same department. "It's about time." "Huh, John?" "Yeah. Hey, I'm getting nervous despite my age." "It can't be helped. After all, John, you're the next." The bell chimed, announcing our arrival at the top floor. As the doors opened, the buzz of employees' voices could be heard. "Finally arrived, huh, John?" Brandon, a man completely out of place in the upscale hotel atmosphere, charged towards us, yelling, "You! How dare you hang up on me yesterday?" Brandon's face contorted like a demon's. He was so furious that half of his words were unintelligible. I was on vacation, after all. "Don't talk back to me, and what's with that attitude? Is that how you address your superior, huh?" Regardless of my response, Brandon kept on ranting. Unbeknownst to the excited Brandon, the other employees were looking on with disapproval. "Because of you not being there, I got chewed out. How are you going to take responsibility if this affects my promotion?" "Haha, Brandon, was it? Why don't you stop making a scene in such a beautiful place? Haha, oh man, that's hilarious." Jack finally lost his patience. He laughed at Brandon in fluent Nebraskese. "Shut up, and who are you anyway? Outsiders should stay quiet. Look, there's that shouting." Hey, Jack, it's not just the noise. The women are getting intimidated." "Shut up," I said. When Jack opened his mouth, Brandon, the manager, repeatedly stamped his right foot on the floor. He looked just like a child throwing a tantrum because he couldn't get the toy he wanted. "Listen up, John, if you even scratch my path to promotion, when that happens," Brandon, while repeatedly jabbing his index finger into my face, spat out his grievances. Then, there it was. So here you were, John." A quiet yet firm voice came from behind Brandon. "The president." It was President Riley. Realizing he had been seen at a bad moment, Brandon quickly straightened up and put on a smile. "Good evening, Mr. President. I'm really sorry about yesterday." No, I'm the one who should apologize. Besides, I appreciate you coming here today, even though it's a holiday. You are our company's." Without even glancing at the standing Brandon, President Riley paused a bit before continuing. "Next president." "What? Next president?" When the current president informed me of this, the strength drained from Brandon's shoulders. Not understanding what was happening, I was just stunned. "Brandon." "Yes, sir. Don't worry, you won't be promoted." With just those words, President Riley walked towards the venue. The four of us followed him into the event. As if the earlier commotion was a lie, the manager had become quiet. He just opened and closed his mouth without being able to say a word. The social gathering began. Company executives gave their speeches one by one, and then it was the current president's turn. I felt my nerves growing. It's finally time. Yeah. Ellie, seated to my left, must have sensed my tension and whispered to me. I hope she'll forgive my curt reply. Ladies and gentlemen of our company, today, all the way here in Guam, President Riley started his introduction, but I wasn't calm enough to listen. And finally, the time came. Therefore, I, Asher Riley, will step down from the presidency and watch over the company as chairman. A mix of gasps and applause followed. When it quieted down a bit, Chairman Riley continued. The new president to succeed me has already been decided. Please step up, John Smith. Yes, I replied with a strong and dignified voice. I was worried whether my walk seemed too stiff. John, please, say a word. I was handed the microphone. I stood to the right of the chairman and looked over the assembled employees. Good. They seemed to be accepting it. Although I noticed an exception sitting alone at a corner table, I focused forward and spoke of the future. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm John Smith. I've been given the honor of succeeding President Riley as the new CEO. My commitment is to the continued growth and advancement of our company. I'm looking forward to working with all of you. Applause filled the room. Even I was surprised. I hadn't expected such a warm welcome. Just a month and a half ago, a 50-year-old guy switches jobs, and suddenly, he's the new CEO. Only the higher-ups knew that I was originally called from Guam to Nebraska as the next in line for the presidency. Thank you, Mr. President. I look forward to making the company thrive with you. And now, yes, the chairman's speech seemed to be continuing. I inadvertently let out a sound, as the turn of events was different from our meeting. Times like these call for some tough talk, but we don't need people who hinder our progress. Those who drag the rest of us down. I'll be issuing some directives once we're back from this trip, so for now, just enjoy the journey. That's all. I bowed with the chairman to everyone present and descended the steps. During that moment, I saw Brandon pressing his right hand against his forehead, trembling. Due to my parents' work, I'd mostly lived abroad. I spent up until middle school in China, then went to the US for further studies, graduating from both high school and college there. My language skills landed me a job at a Nebraska's company in the States. My sales were always top-notch, leveraging my bilingual advantage. I was even asked to host seminars to boost sales. That's when Mr. Riley approached me a few months back. Mr. Asher Riley, the president of a Nebraska's company, is a childhood friend of the president of Guam. He is now 70 years old, and I heard that he's been thinking about retiring soon. However, he seems to be in trouble because he hasn't found a successor yet. That's why I was recommended as the successor to President Riley. Even if I'm suddenly told to take over as president, I don't know much about the company's internal affairs. Besides, the pressure is immense. Because of that, I made it a condition to spend about 1 to 2 months as an ordinary employee. President Riley willingly accepted this, and with my agreement, the job change was finalized. Looking back, I believe it was the right decision. Thanks to that, I was able to single out people like Brandon. The night before the social gathering, President Riley called me and I reported on Brandon. When he summoned him and asked why I was not there, he just kept making excuses that suited him. This infuriated President Riley, but at the same time, Brandon was also angry at me, trying to shift the blame. There's no reason for me to be scolded, though. Well, anyway, it seems that he had already decided what to do with Brandon at that time. Not only this time, but there had been complaints about Brandon from the employees for a long time. In addition, I consulted with the current chairman about the odd figures reported by Brandon. It's a crucial part of the company's revenue, so as the new president, I can't overlook it. I asked some employees who remained in Nebraska to investigate Brandon. As a result, evidence of misconduct was found one after another. It seems he had been embezzling funds over the past few years. Of course, Brandon, who had been repeating such acts, was fired. Just as the chairman had told me, the official notice came right after I returned from my trip to Guam. Words like hindering progress and pulling everyone's leg were all aimed at him. After that, it became a matter for the lawyers to handle. If he was pocketing company money, that's a serious offense. He needs to pay for what he's done. Neither the chairman, myself, nor the rest of the employees work for charity. It's been half a year since I took over as president. The immediate goals are to reduce overtime and increase productivity. I encouraged spreading the practices I had been doing in the department when I first joined to the entire company. I also actively introduced flex time and remote work. Creating an environment where everyone can work comfortably was my first job as president. This system reform has been well received, and I've been getting various suggestions from the employees. President Smith: "Oh, Kylie, what can I do for you? We were discussing in the department, and we thought using chat for internal communication would be good. It's more casual and smooth for checking." Chat, yeah, that might be convenient. I'll bring it up at the next executive meeting. Thank you very much. I'm counting on you. The reason for an environment where it's easy to consult, regardless of place or time, is because I dislike sitting up high. I made it a point to spend lunchtime with the employees as much as possible and always have a smile on my face. It seems to be having a good effect. The free working style I learned at the company in Guam. The diligent working attitude I learned at the Nebraska's company. By striking a good balance between these two elements, the company's productivity has been on the rise. Watching the state of the company, the chairman looks pleased. He's completely at ease now and has gone off on a trip around the world. It seems he's really enjoying his retirement. The monthly web regular meeting, conducted by the chairman, myself, and Jack, who recently took over as president in Guam, broadcasts his adventures. After a good laugh, we get down to business. I've started to look forward to this rhythm too. A workplace with good vibes. A workplace with clear boundaries. A stress-free workplace. And a workplace where no one is singled out. It's tough to sum up what makes a great workplace in just one sentence. Yet, I plan to listen to the employees and turn each ideal into reality. It's these efforts that I believe will improve the company. And it's with this belief that I aim to reach even greater heights.